This year's Lifetime Achievement Awards are presented in memoriam to Commander Bobby Mutter.
Lifetime Achievement Awards.
Commander Bobby Mutter had a successful career in law enforcement that had spanned more than 25 years. Although Bobby held just about every position at the Titusville Police Department, his public acclaim was for both criminal investigations as well as instituting a police K-9 program. As a detective, Bobby Mutter worked hundreds of cases, but perhaps the most high profile was a kidnapped female from Titusville, where her abductors battered and shot her, leaving her body on the side of the road. Bobby developed leads and within just 24 hours had the two offenders in custody, along with enough evidence to put them away for life. Bobby also instituted a K-9 program at the Titusville Police Department by bringing his own dog to work at his own expense. He tracked literally hundreds of felons and was instrumental in writing guidelines for police dogs throughout the nation when he was the national president of the North American Police Work Dog Association. Following retirement, Bobby always remained close to law enforcement due to the network of officers he had mentored. Sadly, Bobby passed away in June, but his legacy of service and passion live on in the hundreds of law enforcement officers who were blessed to work with him. Bobby's passing leaves a void in the community and in our hearts, but Brevard County has been forever changed by his legacy of public service. His career and volunteer efforts, often in leadership roles, made a compelling difference and instilled his great love of community service in others. George Grogan has served as a criminal justice professional for 42 years. He is a graduate of Rollins College and holds a degree in criminal justice and has certifications in both corrections and law enforcement, which he obtained at the Criminal Justice Institute at BCC. He began his career working at Brevard Correctional Institute in November of 1976 and will retire this November. In 1980, George moved to the community corrections side of the agency as a probations officer, where he proudly served as a field officer monitoring and supervising felony offenders on probation and community control. George was one of the first officers in Brevard and the state of Florida to assist in the implementation of electronic monitoring of felony offenders and was the first firearms instructor and rangemaster for community corrections. George also served as an instructor and supervisor at the Florida Safety Institute, where he provided valuable guidance and direction to a multitude of probation officers throughout his career. The Honorable Charles M. Harris received his undergraduate degree from the College of the Ozarks and attained his law degree from the University of Florida. After law school, Judge Harris practiced law for 20 years in Titusville as a partner in the law firm Crofton, Holland, Starling, Harrison, Sievers. Judge Harris served as a judge in the 18th Circuit Court from 1984 through 1989, which included a 2-year term as Chief Judge, where he presided over everything from civil, criminal, to probate courts. In 1989, Judge Harris was appointed to the 5th District Court of Appeals, where he served until his retirement in 2003. Following his retirement, Judge Harris continued to serve as a senior judge in the 18th Judicial Circuit until his retirement in 2017. In addition to serving as an officer in the Brevard County Bar Association, Judge Harris also served as a special prosecutor for the state of Florida in grievance cases brought before the bar. Judge Harris has also been an outstanding supporter of community programs such as coaching Pop Warner football, serving as director and president of the North Brevard YMCA, a member of the Florida Theater Restoration Committee, and serving as an officer in a Presbyterian men's organization. Current federal defense attorney and former Chief Assistant United States Attorney Rick L. Jayancha graduated from the Notre Dame Law School in 1977. He started his legal career as a criminal defense attorney, and in 1986 he joined the Department of Justice to head up its Organized Crime Drug Task Force in Indiana. In 1988, he transferred to Orlando and continued his role as the lead organized crime and federal narcotics task force attorney. Rick served as the manager of the United States Attorney's Office for 5 years, where he was responsible for approving and supervising all criminal prosecutions. Rick then served as chief of the narcotics unit for the Middle District of Florida, where he was responsible for supervising every federal drug prosecution in 35 Florida counties. Throughout his career, Many of his cases were done in collaboration with the BCSO, including a prosecution of over 50 individuals that still stands as the biggest roundup of suspected drug dealers in the history of Brevard County. The web of dealers were responsible for selling and distributing over 12,000 kilograms of cocaine and over 30 tons of marijuana, and included some of the world's most notorious smugglers and infamous drug cartel leaders. Rick joined Najim Law as a partner in 2007 and currently manages the firm's Federal Criminal Division. Dennis Netterer began his public service career as a firefighter with the District 3 Fire Control District in 1979 after being honorary discharged from the United States Air Force. After the merging of the 5 fire control districts in 1984 into what we now know as Brevard County Fire Rescue, he continued to serve the citizens of our county. During his tenure, he has served as a firefighter, company-level officer, district chief, operations chief, deputy fire chief, and interim fire chief. Over the years, Deputy Chief Netterer has been involved in every major capital project and purchase in fire rescue. In addition, his oversight of the many initiatives and programs within fire rescue directly impacts fire and emergency medical service delivery to over 500,000 residents in our county. Dennis retired from the United States Air Force Reserve as a technical sergeant in 2002, with over 20 years of service. In 2014, he retired from Brevard County Fire Rescue as Deputy Chief with 35 years of service. After 6 months of retirement, Dennis returned to BCFR to continue his public service to our community. Commander Mike Robinson has always answered the call to serve our country and the citizens of Brevard. His service began in 1965 when he was drafted into the Army and served in combat during the Vietnam War, where he attained the rank of sergeant and distinguished himself by earning both the Vietnam Combat Medal and the Bronze Star. Upon returning home, Mike was hired as a patrol officer by the Rockledge Police Department. After 10 months, Mike was hired by then Sheriff Lee Wilson and embarked on a career with the BCSO until his retirement in 1996. During his 27-year career with the Sheriff's Office, Mike worked under 4 different sheriffs. Mike moved from patrol to become an agent and later a sergeant in vice and narcotics. It was during this time he became involved in an investigation that would lead to the seizure of 25 tons of marijuana from a ship that entered Port Canaveral. He returned to patrol as a lieutenant and was then asked by Sheriff Miller to transition into corrections, where he was assigned to the county jail as a deputy inspector. Mike's leadership soon resulted in promotions to inspector, major, and commander. His outstanding efforts have no doubt helped countless individuals and improved the quality of life for countless more. Chief Sergeant has a long and distinguished career as the Fire Chief and Chief Executive Officer of the Cape Canaveral Volunteer Fire Department, also known as Canaveral Fire Rescue. Chief Sergeant began his career with CFR in 1983 and rose through the ranks of the department to ultimately be named Chief. As an independent, not-for-profit organization, CFR provides fire protection and advanced life support services for Port Canaveral and the City of Cape Canaveral. Throughout this period, Port Canaveral and the City of Cape Canaveral experienced a dramatic increase in calls for service and now average over 2,000 calls per year. Chief Sergeant leads all strategic and operational aspects of the department, managing the activities of over 30 firefighters and 3 stations. Chief Sergeant is the epitome of a trusted partner in providing fire protection, emergency response, and emergency medical treatment for all users of Port Canaveral, from the largest cruise and cargo vessels to citizens enjoying the beach at Jetty Park. He has ensured that these teams were well-trained, well-equipped, and always ready to respond to medical, trauma, and firefighting. Bobby Sullivan, a 45-year public servant, started his career in law enforcement in 1973 as a police cadet with the Mount Vernon, New York Police Department. In 1974, he became a police officer. During his 8 years of service at the Mount Vernon PD, he worked as a uniformed patrol officer, detective, motorcycle officer, and a certified emergency medical technician. In 1982, Bobby was appointed to the NYPD, and in 1985 was promoted to sergeant. In 1988, he enlisted in the United States Coast Guard Reserves, and later he enlisted in the New York State Army National Guard and the United States Army Reserves. Bobby volunteered for active duty in the support of Operation Desert Storm, where he was assigned to the 438th Military Police Company. In 1995, Bobby retired from the NYPD and moved to Florida, where he transferred to the Florida Army National Guard and was hired by the Melbourne Police Department before taking a position with the Indian Harbor Beach Police Department as a patrol officer. He was promoted to the rank of sergeant, deputy chief, and was appointed chief of police in 2004. He proudly served the citizens of Indian Harbor Beach until retiring in 2015. In August of 15, Bobby became a member of the BCSO Reserve Unit, where he now volunteers his services. Commander Ken Willis started his law enforcement career in 1981 as an auxiliary deputy with the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. In '83, Ken became a reserve deputy and was assigned to the Ag Marine Unit. In 2006, now Lieutenant Willis was recognized as Reserve Deputy of the Year. During Ken's career, he volunteered over 28,000 hours, where he has been recognized for his unselfish dedication and service. In 2014, Ken was promoted to Major and assigned to command the rapidly growing Reserve Program. He was also tasked to start the BCSO Mounted Posse Unit. In 2016, Ken was promoted to Commander, where he continues to direct the efforts of this important volunteer unit. During Ken's 37 years, the Reserve Unit has grown from 18 to 70 deputies, and the Mounted Posse Unit has more than 35 active members.